Hi guys, I thought I would make a quick video just before your exam on Monday, just to show you a couple of questions that I've found some of my students are a bit confused by. And I think the confusion comes from the fact that you can do some of these questions a couple of different ways, and the trick is to pick which way makes the question easier to complete. So I'll show you a couple of examples now to explain what I mean. Okay, so it's to do with percentages, and here I've got the question that says find 20% of 50. Okay, so the two ways that come to my mind straight away is that you can find what 10% of 50 is and multiply it by 2 to get 20%. And the other option is to recognize that 20% is the fraction 1/5 and work with that number, which I'll go through in a second. Okay, so let's try this way first. Alright, so to find 10% of something, what you need to do is divide it by 10. So if you know that you have a whole number and you can't see the decimal place, that means that it's actually at the end, kind of like a full stop. And to divide by 10, because we've only got 1 0 here, we're just going to move our decimal place one position. Okay, and then I get the decimal of 5.0, which is the same as 5. Okay, so 10% of 50 equals 5. So to get 20%, all I need to do is to double that number, okay, which is 10. Alright, so that's the answer there. Okay, so that's one way you can do it. Find 10% by dividing the number by 10, and then if it's asking you for 20%, you could double it. Or if it's asking you for like 5%, you could halve your 10% figure, okay, as well, just as an option. Okay, here's another way you could do this sort of question. You could recognize that 20% is the same as 1/5, okay? And to find out what your answer is there, you would go 50 divided by 5 to get what 1/5 is equal to. And that leads you straight to the answer of 10. Okay, so slightly faster in this case, alright, but I would just suggest that you make sure that whatever method you choose, you're really confident and familiar in. Okay, now you might occasionally get a question that doesn't really help if you find 10%, and the fraction that the percentage is equal to is also a bit tricky to recognize straight away. And so you have another option for those types of questions. An example of those questions would be 12% of 150, for example. And I've just taken this question straight out of the textbook. I think it's in 9C. Okay, so you can't easily find 10%. You can easily find 10%, but it's asking you for 12, so it's a bit tricky. And 12% as a fraction that is helpful for you to use is a bit tricky to find as well. Okay, so what you could do here is to find what 1% is and then multiply that by 12 to find what 12% equals. Okay, so to find 1%, you are dividing by 100. So if you've got your whole number of 150 and you've got your decimal point at the end like a full stop because it's a whole number, if you're dividing by 100, you're moving your decimal place 2 places because there's 2 zeros. 1, 2. Okay, so 150 divided by 100, which is finding 1%, is 1.5. Okay, now you need to multiply that by 12 because the question's not asking you for 1%, it's asking you for 12%. Okay, so the easiest way to do that is to set that out like a normal multiplication algorithm. Okay, you're setting out like so, and complete it ignoring the decimal, and then when we're multiplying decimals we add it in the end according to a set of factors which I'll tell you about in a sec, remind you of in a sec. Okay, so 2 times 5 is 10, put my 0 down, carry my 1, 2 times 1 is 2 plus 1 is 3. Okay, put my 0 down here because I'm moving to the next place value, okay, of 10, so 1 times 5 is 5, 1 times 1 is 1, and there was no carry through there, so that's 150. Okay, and then I add up my result. Okay, now I need to not forget to add in my decimal place, And because there's only one number after my decimal point in my question, that's the amount of places that I move my decimal point into from the end. And so my answer of 12% of 50 is 18. Okay? If you wrote it like so, you're not wrong, but it's not necessary. So just 18 there is correct. Okay, so 3 different methods. Just to recap, you can find 10% and then work with that figure depending on what the question asks you with. So you could halve it to get 5%, double it to get 20. The other way is that you could recognize the fraction. All right, so for example, if you had 40%, that would be the same as 2/5, okay, and you could work with that number and times up by 2 or whatever. Okay, so recognize it as a fraction. And then the last method is to find what 1% is and multiply it to get whatever the question's asking you for. And that's particularly handy for percentages that are, I would say, not ordinary, okay, something like 37% or, I don't know, 23% or something like that. That's the handiest method for that one. All right, I hope that makes it a bit clearer. All right, good luck for your study for your exam.